Okay, we're gonna go over to page 204 again. We'll do the odds. So if you've already done it, then you got a head start. But so starting on number 1 on 204.
Why paper?
I need paper.
I need paper.
You
What's
need paper.
What's the paper?
Paper, son. Why everyone needs paper?
Okay, number 1. This is actually a review. And if you have a Casio calculator, they can kind of do this automatically. You guys remember simplifying square roots?
Kind of.
We look for doubles that go into 54. Like what can go into 54?
2 and 27.
2 and 27. 27 is 9 times 3, and 9 is 3 times 3. So we have a double 3 and a leftover 2 and 3. So the double 3 turns into a normal 3, and the leftover 2 times 3 goes in the square root, which is just a 6. So it's the double 3 becomes a normal 3, 1 3, and the 2 and 3 become a 6 inside the square root. That makes sense. Does anybody have a Casio?
Yeah, I think.
You do. You guys in the back do.
Yeah, mine is.
That little one won't do it. It's got
I
to
don't
be
believe
the
in
bigger.
It doesn't do it
You
though.
don't believe them.
I don't believe in
You have to change the mode. If it doesn't work, you have to change what mode it's on. Okay.
What? What do you
I know.
What do you say you don't have to do?
Okay. Number 3. I'll do later. Okay. The other thing that we're learning today, this is new actually, I think. Maybe we did it in Algebra 1, but you can't leave a square root in the denominator. Anybody remember how we fixed that? You can't leave square root in the denominator. You multiply, you don't flip it, you multiply the top and bottom by square root of 6. Because what happens when you do square root of 6 times square root of 6? What's that equal?
6.
Normal 6. So no more square roots in the denominator. Okay, the top is 1 times square root of 6, which is, you could say it's 1 square root of 6, but that's just square root of 6. Okay, you cannot multiply normal numbers with square roots. Like 5 times square root of 7. Okay, you could plug that in your calculator and get a weird decimal, but the simplified version, the not weird decimal version, would just be 5 square root of 7. Okay, they don't mix. Same thing with dividing. That doesn't reduce. Square root and a normal number, no. So this is our final answer on number 3. All these answers, if you plug them in the calculator, you could turn them into weird decimal, like infinite decimal answers. But the simplified version, the not messy version, we're just going to leave the square roots. Okay, number 5. Okay, this is new also. Square root of negative 4. Question. What is the square root of negative 1? What times itself equals negative 1?
1/2. No. 1.
1 times 1 is 1. What equals
Nothing.
negative 1? Let's put the food away.
Nothing
Negative
times
one
itself
times
equals
one.
Imaginary 1.
Well, negative 1 times negative 1 is also positive 1. So, nothing really works for this. If you plug it in your calculator, it'll probably say error, unless you have like a TI, a fancy one. So this is called an imaginary number. And what we call it though is just I, short for imaginary, I guess. And it kind of is like a variable. Square root of negative 1 is just, we call it I. Okay, so going back to number 5. Square root of negative 4, that's the same thing as like square root of negative 1 times square root of 4. You guys get that? Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. Okay, the square root of negative 1 part is just I. Okay, you can't really do anything with it, it's just an I. But what's the square root of 4?
2.
2. So this simplifies to 2I. So really, anytime you have a negative inside your square root, you're just going to take it away and turn it into an I. That's all you do. So it probably looks more complicated than it is. If the problem had just been square root of 4, that would have just been a 2, right? So the only difference is, instead of being just a 2, this is a 2I. The end. Now apparently imaginary numbers do have some kind of application, like in electronics or something, but I don't know what it is, but we're going to do it anyway.
What number are we going to?
260.
We'll go to 26. All right, number 7, negative square root of negative 25. All right, what do you guys think for this one?
Negative
5i.
Negative 5i.
That's right. This right here is just a 5i, and then there's a negative in front of it. So yeah, it's just negative 5i. Okay, on a Casio, it doesn't do the negative inside the square root. But if you just do the square root without a negative, and then add the I on, then you will still get the right answer. Okay, number 9, square root of negative 20. Okay, so that means I is going to be part of the answer. 20, does that simplify? What goes into 20? 10 and 2. And what goes in 10? 5 and 2. So we got a double 2 and a leftover 5. So it's 2 square root of 5. Now guess where I'm going to put the I at? Behind the normal number in front of the square root. They don't like you to put it behind the square root because it looks like it's in the square root, and so that's not good. So basically, if you have a normal number, the I is going to go afterwards. If you have a square root, the I is going to go in front of it. That's how we do it. 2I squared 5. Number 11. Square root of negative 48 fifths. Okay, so I is going to be part of the answer. When you have a fraction in the square root, what this really means is both of those are in the square root. Okay, so it's like square root of 48 over square root of 5. So two things. Can't leave square root of 5 in the denominator. Remember that from number 3. Can't leave the square root in the denominator. Also, square root of 48 is going to simplify because there's going to be some doubles in it. So probably easier to simplify square root of 48 first. So what goes into 48?
16 and 3.
16 and 3. Okay, 16 is 4 times 4. We could break that down some more, but since it's already a double, you can stop here. So this is going to be 4 square root of 3. Okay. How did I fix the square root in the denominator earlier?
Multiply by 2.
Yeah, multiply top and bottom by square root of 5. So the top, you can multiply square roots together, you just can't multiply the 4 times the square root of 5. So it would be 4 square root of 15. And the bottom will be normal 5. Something is a little bit wrong with my answer. Anybody know what it is?
It was negative.
Yeah, I forgot my negative. Well, I didn't forget, but I threw it away. It was a negative, so there should be an I. Guess where the I is going to go?
In the
Right there.
does it matter where it goes?
Kind of. If you put it in front of 4, I probably wouldn't count it wrong. If it was in the denominator, that would be wrong. So it goes after the normal number in front of the square root. 13. New problems. Alright, before we do 13, which is that, let me look at this really quick. If x squared was 9, what could x be?
3.
Could be 3. Is there anything else that would work? Could be -3, right? Because a negative squared, negative times negative, would also equal positive. So it could be positive or -3. Anytime you have something squared equals something, it could be a positive or negative form of that. Because the negative squared would also give you the same answer. So in other words, what times itself equals 169? It's like asking what's the square root of 169. Or here's another way to think about it. To solve for x and you get x by itself, how do I get rid of square? I square a root. But if you do that on one side, you do it on the other. However, you need to remember that it can also always be positive or negative when you use that trick. Because -3, works. What's the square root of 169? 13. So that would be the answer. So there's actually two answers to these problems. Number 13 is positive or negative 13. All these problems are going to look like this. Okay, 15. Z squared equals -27. So same thing, we're going to take the square root of both sides, like that. But don't forget to put a plus or minus there. Does 27 simplify?
Yeah.
What goes into it?
3.
9 times 3. 9 is 3 times 3. So it's going to become 3 square root of 3. But there's an I involved. So it's plus or minus 3i square root of 3. So with your calculator, you could plug in, if you have a Casio, square root of 27, and square root of 27 will spit out this. This part. It'll do this, it'll simplify the 27 for you. But you still need to put a plus minus and the I in there for the negative. So it does most of the work, really. 17. A squared plus 4 equals 0. What do you guys think? What should I do on this one? How could I solve this for A? Jasmine, what do you think? Anybody else have an idea?
17. Sorry, what?
How could I solve this for you? Right, subtract 4. Get A squared by itself, and then I can use that square root trick. A squared is -4. Then I square root both sides, so I get A equals plus or minus, what's the square root of -4? 2i. Okay, I should probably stop and make a note here. On that assignment we just graded, we did problems that look like this. And we didn't get A squared by itself and then square root both sides. What we did was we factored, like what goes into -4 that adds up to -3. We factored like that. So this is the last assignment we did. And we got A is 4, -1. That's what we just graded. Okay, this thing. The difference is this problem is a lot simpler. It only has an A squared. It doesn't have A squared and a 3A and then a 4. These problems are more complicated. They have to be factored. On this one, it just has an A squared as the only variable. So we could get it by itself in square root. This has an A squared and an A, so we couldn't do that. You had to use factoring tricks. Alright, 19. Okay, 24 minus 3z squared Okay, what do you guys think for the first step? So, again, it just has a z squared. So just like we were trying to get z by itself, we're trying to get z squared by itself.
Minus 24.
So minus 24, yeah. Get rid of the added value. This is like 24 plus negative 3z squared. So take away 24. So this is actually negative 48, not 0. We have negative 3z squared left on the left side. Now what? Divide by negative 3. Z squared equals, plug that in your calculator, get 16. So what squared equals 16? 4 or negative 4. So don't forget, this is the same kind of problem, they're just a little messier. So all of these are going to have a plus or minus also, plus or minus 4. And you can check your answers, you can plug it back in up in here and see if it works. 4 squared or negative 4 squared would be 16 times 3 is 48. 24 minus 48 is negative 24. Alright, 21. Negative 4y squared equals 20. Okay, how do I get y squared by itself? Divide by negative 4. Y squared is negative 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5. Now what do I do? What do you think, Holly? After you get x squared equals something, what did we do on that last few problems?
See what 5 is?
We saw what the square root of 5 was, right? So, and remember, it can always be positive or negative when you do the square root trick. Square root of negative 5. Does square root of negative 5 simplify? Does anything go into 5? Are there any doubles inside of 5? No. But you can't leave the negative in there. What do I do with it? No. I take it out as an I. So, and I'm going to put it in front of the square root symbol. So square root of 5 doesn't really simplify, but the negative comes out as an I. That's really the only thing. It shouldn't be too tricky. Just turn that negative into an I, and there you go. Okay, 23. 7x squared minus 22. Equals 4x squared plus 8. Alright, got x squares all over the place. What do you guys think? Wesley, what do you think?
I think we should subtract 4x squared.
Yeah, get rid of the x squareds on one side. Subtract 4x squared, and that'll get all our x squareds to the left. So we'll have 3x squareds. So it's a lot like 3x minus 22 equals 88. You know, we just got to get x by itself. In this case, x squared by itself. So I'm going to add 22. And divide by 3. So if x squared is 10, what's x? Hmm? No, it's not 5. That would be divided by what times itself equals 10?
Square root.
Square root of 10. Is that the answer? Plus or minus square root of 10. Okay, in other words, we don't know exactly. We could use a calculator and give us a decimal. We like 3 times 3 is 9, right? So it'll probably be like 3.215, something weird like that. It doesn't come out nice and pretty, so we just leave it as square root of 10. Okay, where are we at? 25? V minus 8 squared equals 20. Alright, I think I'm gonna add on, well, let's go to 28 instead of the original 26. So, Jasmine, did you hear that? So we're gonna do, I got a couple more left. Alright, on this problem, it looks a little bit different because we don't just have v squared, we have v minus 8 squared. So since this whole left side is squared, you can go ahead and get rid of that squared by doing the square root trick. Okay, you don't need to really FOIL. Just get rid of the square by doing this trick that we've been doing. So when I square root the left side, I get v minus 8. And on the right side, I get square root of 24. But, just like before, you can't really, it could be positive or negative, that.
Wait, so we're going to 28 too?
Yes. We'll go to 27. Okay. Alright, does 24 simplify? Probably. What goes into 24? 6 and 4, 3 and 2, 2 and 2. So it's basically it's 2 square root of 6. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Whoops. So I got b minus 8 equals that. Okay, I'm just trying to solve for b, so what do I need to do with the 8? Add it to get rid of it. Okay, do these things add together nicely? No. Square roots, normal, no. Okay, some weird decimal, so we can't do it. So I'm not really going to add them together, I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to write it as 8 plus or minus 2 squared of 6. So basically I just put the normal number in front. So that represents two different answers. Whatever 8 plus 2 squared of 6 is, that's one answer. And whatever 8 minus 2 squared of 6 is, that's another answer. So we're just writing it all in one, like that. Okay, last one, 27. I think we're going to need the same kind of problem here. 3s plus 5 squared equals negative 48. What do you guys think would be a good first step on this one? Any guesses?
Square root of s plus 5.
Okay, the problem is you could do that, but the 3 is on the left side and you'd have to square root the 3, which would make a mess. So let's get rid of that 3 first. How do I get rid of the 3? Right, 3 is multiplied to the left side, so if I divide the left side by 3, that will get rid of it. So divide that by 3, that would be negative 16. So I got this. Now, when I square root both sides, that's going to work better. So I get s plus 5 equals plus or minus, don't forget, square root of negative 16.
8i, right?
Huh?
Isn't it like 8i or
No, try again.
something? Oh, yeah.
4i. 4 times 4 is 16. Well, guess what I'm going to do with this 5?
In 2 weeks of math and or 2 weeks without math and
Yeah.
completely forgotten it.
Now, yeah, these don't mix again, so I'm not going to really do anything. I'm just going to write down minus 5 plus or minus 4i. Two totally different things, so they don't add together well. You can't even get a calculator answer, because that's an imaginary thing. There's not going to, your calculator can't even give you a decimal for it.
So we're doing imaginary math.
Yep. imagine it, and I can imagine it being wrong.
But wouldn't that be like, you know, a false standard, like, wouldn't that mean that technically we shouldn't be doing this at all?
No. Alright, try the evens, 1 through 28. Good luck. Godspeed.
I'm gonna